What constitutes an insurrection needs to be grounded in historical usage, because that's what the law demands. That's what equality under the law demands. That's what fairness, so we understand what the standards are by which we comport our behavior, not post facto making it up to try and figure that out. The term engage. The term engage means to do something. Frankly, no one really knows what that means, but I think we can all agree it means to do something. That's what the word engage means. Okay? There's substantial historical evidence that engage does not mean mere incitement through words. It doesn't mean that. And frankly, President Trump didn't engage. He didn't carry a pitchfork to the Capitol grounds. He didn't lead a charge. He didn't get in a fist fight with legislators. He didn't goad President Biden into going out back and having a fight. He gave a speech in which he asked people to peacefully and patriotically go to the Capitol to protest.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the establishment's many attempts to try to overthrow democracy, or more accurately, overthrow our republic by keeping President Trump off of the ballot, okay? I mean, we already know about all of the indictments and charges against him for January 6th, for challenging the outcome of the 2020 election, for, the things having to do with his businesses. They're going after the guy on every single front, okay? And one front that I told you guys would come up is the fact that the powers that be, particularly the Trump deranged Democrats and the never Trumpers, would try to remove Trump from the ballot to make him ineligible to be on the ballot at the state level, okay, after Jack Smith's indictment against Trump, because they are trying to use the 14th Amendment, Section 3, more specifically, to justify Trump not being on the ballot because he, quote unquote, participated in an insurrection. Now, again, this is happening in a variety of states. The state that we got to talk about today is Colorado. It's happening in Minnesota. It's happening in Michigan. It's happening in Arizona. And it's happening in New Hampshire. Okay, these are the states where the never Trumpers and the Trump deranged Democrats are trying their hardest to overthrow our republic by keeping Trump off of the ballot. So I want to go ahead and play this video here of what's going on in Colorado, because it's important to pay attention to this stuff, because I don't want people to be shocked if the Trump deranged judicial system tries to find a way to take Trump off of the ballot, which, hey, I got to be honest with you guys. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, okay? Because clearly there's an effort in this country to rig the 2024 election, okay? I mean, there is no other way to describe it. What you currently have is election interference against one man that they're trying to stop from being president of the United States. And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse the more Trump dominates in the polls, which, I mean, with passing days now, it seems that Trump is gaining more and more and more momentum. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Former President Trump is facing a new type of legal challenge. 6 voters in Colorado filing a lawsuit Wednesday seeking to remove him from the state's election ballots. The suit says in part, quote, 4 years after taking an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution as president of the United States, Trump tried to overthrow the results of the 2020 election by instigating this unprecedented assault on the American constitutional order. Trump violated his oath and disqualified himself under the 14th Amendment from holding public office, including the office of the president. Vaughn Hilliard joins us now live from Rapid City, South Dakota, where the former president will be tomorrow. Vaughn, this is referring to Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, which is from the post-Civil War era. It says in part, I'm going to read it here for our viewers, no person shall hold any office, civil or military, who having previously taken an oath as an officer of the U.S. to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof.
Now, obviously and clearly, Trump is not in violation of this, okay? Trump did not engage in an insurrection. He gave a speech in which at that point, he told people to peacefully protest at the Capitol in regards to the election results. Questioning the outcome of the election is not engaging in an insurrection, okay? Under no stretch of the imagination does what is described here in the Constitution applied to Trump in regards to Trump's actions on January 6th or leading up to January 6th, okay? Especially considering the fact that he quite literally said protest peacefully over the outcome of the election. That's what the man said. So, if you are going to try to hold Trump accountable for telling protesters to protest peacefully and also for challenging the outcome of the election, then Hillary should be disqualified from holding office. Rashida Tlaib should be disqualified from holding office because she incited an insurrection after a mob of pro-Palestine supporters overran the Capitol just like a week ago. And every Democrat that objected to every Republican victory in the last 20 years should also be disqualified from holding office.
I have an objection because 10 of the 29 electoral votes cast by Florida were cast by electors not lawfully certified.
I object to the votes from the state of Wisconsin, which should not be legally certified.
Mr. President, I object to the certificate from the state of Georgia on the grounds that the electoral votes were not.
There's no debate.
And I object to the certificate from the state of North Carolina.
I object to the 15 votes from the state of North Carolina. I object.
I object to the certificate from the state of Alabama. The electors were not lawfully certified.
Is it signed by a senator?
Not as of yet, Mr. President.
In that case, the objection cannot be entertained. The objection cannot be entertained. Debate is not in order.
Ballot. Even with the
There is no debate in order. Is it signed by a senator? There is no debate. There is no debate in the joint session. There is no debate. There is no debate. There is no debate. Please come to order. The objection cannot be received. Section 18, Title 3 of the United States Code prohibits debate in the joint session.
I do not wish to debate. I wish to ask, is there one United States senator who will join me in this letter
There
of
is no
objection?
debate. There is no debate. The gentlewoman will suspend.
Yeah, so all these people, okay, according to these never-Trumpers and Democrats that are so upset with Trump running for office again in 2024, again, they should be trying to have all these Democrats that objected to the 2016 election removed as well, right? Let's be consistent because, again, objecting to the election is an act of insurrection, right? This is the precedent that they're trying to set. And if you give a speech and a mob goes to the Capitol after your speech, right, regardless of whether or not you told them to be peaceful, okay, which, I'm not sure if Rashida Tlaib actually told her mob to be peaceful, then she engaged in the insurrection. She should be removed from office. I'm just saying. We got to be consistent with the standards here, but we know that they're never consistent with the standards. They're double standards, and Trump is always held to a much higher standard than Democrats.
Okay, so Vaughn, a lot of history there, a lot of legalese for our viewers. Break it down for us. Is there a solid argument in this lawsuit?
Right. This is legitimate federal statute that ultimately the courts will have to decide on. And this would obviously be expedited. One Secretary of State suggested to me this could go to the U.S. Supreme Court. In this case, this was a lawsuit that was filed in federal circuit court in Colorado. So there could be a potential ruling from a judge. It could go to an appeal. It could reach the U.S. Supreme Court potentially. Of course, what the disqualification clause says is that it prevents somebody who engaged in rebellion or insurrection from holding or seeking public office, but it also prevents somebody who provided aid and comfort to those who partook in insurrection or rebellion from also seeking office. Of course, Donald Trump has only been charged with crimes related to the January 6th attack and an attempt to interfere in the 2020 election, but he has not been found guilty in the court of law, and so that is where ultimately a judge would have to determine the extent to which Donald Trump may or may not qualify for a ballot in these states.
So guys, can you imagine the precedent that's attempting to be set here, right? In the sense that nobody associated with what happened on January 6th has actually been charged with the federal crime of insurrection or treason or anything like that, right? However, regardless of that, they are trying to remove a former president from the ballot to be able to run again based off something that he was not even formally charged with. And nobody associated with what happened on January 6th has been charged with that because what happened on January 6th does not meet the strict legal definition or standard for an insurrection. But yet they're trying to remove somebody from the ballot based off something that they haven't even been charged with. That is the precedent that is being set here, guys. So moving forward in the future, technically, right, Republicans can say, look, I believe that a Democrat committed insurrection for X, Y, and Z reason, right? For example, Rashida Tlaib. Doesn't matter if she's actually been charged. Doesn't matter if she's been found guilty. Doesn't matter. None of that matters. I just believe that it was because the pro-Palestine supporters overran the Capitol. And a ton of them got arrested. That argument is just as strong as the argument that's been made right now, right? If Rashida Tlaib was trying to run for president, to have her removed from the ballot. Because Trump hasn't been charged with insurrection. She hasn't been charged with insurrection. That's what's happening here, guys. But again, we all know if a Republican made that argument, Democrats would say that's silly, right? That's nonsense, right? But when it's applied to Trump, though, oh, it's legitimate, right? I mean, this is crazy stuff, guys. This is the actual real insurrection that's happening right here. It's happening right here.
Essentially have to wait to see how these cases, both at the federal level and in Georgia, play out.
That's a question that ultimately the judge will have to determine. The voters in this particular lawsuit in Colorado contend that it is imperative that the Secretary of State in Colorado remove his name from the ballot. There is nothing in statute that says one has to be found guilty of a crime of insurrection. But that is where, because there's such little precedent to this, that it's really open to interpretation, potentially from a federal judge, Tom.
How is the former president responding to this?
His words today in an interview this afternoon were nonsense, suggesting that those who engaged in an insurrection were actually those who rigged, in his words, the 2020 election. And so for Donald Trump, he said this is a continuation of election interference of the 2024 election, one that he has suggested the only way that he can be beat is by taking him off the ballot and by keeping him from ultimately seeking the White House again.
And the goal here is not just Colorado, right? There's similar efforts in other states.
Right, and some key swing states, including Arizona, who the Secretary of State in Arizona I talked to just this last week, and he said he is awaiting potentially lawsuits to come because they have to go and print out the ballots. And in the role of Secretary of State, it's their job to simply go through the process of putting names of those who qualify. It's not for them to determine who is qualified for the ballot or not, and that is really where we have not seen large precedent. In New Mexico last year, Tom, there was a county commissioner that a state judge ruled had to be removed from the ballot. But then in Arizona last year, there was another state judge who determined that 3 members of Congress in Arizona could not be removed under this statute. So it's open for interpretation from judges here. And I think this lawsuit out of Colorado is just the beginning.
You know, Vaughn, I know you're not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to make a call about the weight or the value of this lawsuit. But who essentially defends this lawsuit, or who defends himself? Does the Trump campaign have to fight this?
This is ultimately going to, it's a very good question. In real time here, Tom, I think that is, if you're talking about Trump world here, they have a number of indictments that they're currently trying to work through. So I think it would be a question here in the case of Colorado. You have a Democratic Secretary of State. This lawsuit was filed on behalf of 2 unaffiliated voters, Republican voters. I think there are question marks here about whether Trump needs to seek his own counsel to defend himself or not.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard, I threw you a legal curveball there. You did a great job with it. Vaughn Hilliard on the campaign trail, in the courts, everywhere when it comes to campaign 2024. We appreciate all your reporting, Vaughn.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Yeah, this is an attempt to basically rig the 2024 election. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. They're trying to remove the man from the ballot for a crime that he has not been found guilty of and he has not been charged with. That's just a fact. And people that were involved in January 6th, none of them have been charged with this crime either. So what are you talking about, right? I mean, legally speaking, what happened on January 6th was not an insurrection. So how in the world can you remove somebody for participating in an insurrection when you can't even legally define what happened on January 6th as an insurrection. It doesn't make sense. But again, this is what's happening. This is the real threat to democracy in our country. The never-Trumpers, the Democrats who are actively trying to rig the outcome of elections by basically removing options for people to vote for. This is the most anti-democratic thing that I've ever seen in my life. And again, it's just so ironic coming from the people that claim they believe in democracy so much, right? That's the crazy thing about it. But hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.